So people are calling today's sneaker an alternative to the $3,000 Kaws Jordan 4s. But is there any truth to that? And are they even worth the brand new higher retail price? Here we have the box, and this is where the special edition vibes immediately start. So this is a very different Jordan 4 box. For starters, it comes in, I guess, some kind of cement or concrete type finish. It doesn't just have the appearance of concrete, but it also has the texture, which is really nice. Like, I know it may seem like a small thing, but it adds like a little bit of something different, a little bit more of a premium touch to this sneaker. I know you can't feel the texture yourself, but if you just listen to that, you might get an understanding. Let's pop these things open and let me show you guys today's sneaker. It's the Jordan 4 Paris. I really gotta say, like, the whole experience of pulling these out of that box really sets the entire experience apart from any other Jordan 4. Like, it's not just the box that's different, the shoes are also pretty damn different. Now, it does seem a little bit confusing in terms of all of the different aspects kind of being linked together and the naming of this shoe, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Let me give you guys the release details. So these are set to drop on July the 27th, and they're gonna retail for a whopping $225. That's right, that's more than the military blue 4s at $215. Same thing for the Bred reimagines. These are an extra layer of more expensive. So I'm really hoping that that new retail price is just for these because they're a special edition and not just Jordan Brand raising the price as they've done plenty of times recently. Another potential caveat to these being a special edition is the fact that they may be a little bit harder to get your hands on. Obviously, we're not entirely sure yet, but they could potentially be a lot more limited than your standard pair of Jordan 4s. But of course, we'll have to wait and see when they actually release. So I guess first thing on the agenda is to address the elephant in the room, and that is the comparison that people are making between this sneaker and the Kaws Jordan 4. It's always a little bit funny when this happens. We've seen this so many times with Jordan Brand and Nike where they kind of make a sneaker that is very similar to a much more hyped up and expensive sneaker. But I feel like the reality is there's only a small amount of people who would simply just buy a pair of shoes strictly because it has a more expensive lookalike. I feel like the Kaws 4s are mostly hyped up because of how limited and scarce that they are, and obviously it being a collaboration. Nevertheless, I will say that these do seem a little bit more like a combination between the Kaws 4s and then maybe the Cool Greys from 2019. Now, these are called the Paris Jordan 4s because they are inspired or in celebration of the Paris Olympics, which is taking place this year, July 26th to August the 11th. At the time of recording, I don't have the story behind this pair of shoes because Nike hasn't published it yet. But if I had to guess, the theme and colorway of this pair of shoes might be taking inspiration from the Olympic medals that are going to be given out this year. Interestingly enough, those medals are actually going to contain a piece of iron from the Eiffel Tower. And that hexagon-shaped piece of iron that's in the center of those medals is what I believe Jordan Brand is taking inspiration from. The color and, of course, the texture, or what I assume the texture looks like. That's what I imagine the textured box and this kind of crackled leather that you find around the mudguard is heavily leaning into. I think that would actually be a really cool move because it's such an interesting thing that they're going to be giving out pieces of the Eiffel Tower. How freaking Paris is that? I think I was super impressed with this sneaker because they didn't just slap a different color on it, even though maybe from afar it just kind of looks like that. They've actually changed quite a few different details on here. And I think with all of these changes combined, it really does make it a solid qualification for an actual special edition. Obviously, you know how much I love that box. It does does feel really nice, and it really adds another layer of premiumness with the entire experience of unboxing this sneaker. But the materials on the sneaker do kind of also feel slightly textured as well. So the lighter gray nubuck that you see on the upper of this pair of shoes isn't soft and hairy like you would find on other sneakers. It kind of feels very short and almost a little bit grippy. Unfortunately, it's most likely not going to age very well because Jordan Brand even added a tag to these things, and it just says that due to the nature of the nubuck leather material characteristics, scratches on the upper should be expected. I think that's a pretty crazy thing to say, like, oh hey, the new shoes you got, yeah, we added some extra scratchy material to it, so one step outside, you toast. So yeah, maybe just be careful with them. Now the typical rubber mesh panels that you find on either side of the sneaker and of course underneath the laces, those have actually been completely removed with these. So now what you're left with is a debossed nubuck material with that grid pattern. Essentially from afar, it kind of looks like a regular pair of Jordan 4s, but up close you can kind of feel that texture, and I kind of like it. It's a very similar thing to what they did on the Craft 4s, except instead of having the soft suede that you had on those, it's now just a solid nubuck. The laces they added are actually an extra touch of premiumness as well because they feel a lot more rigid. They're like the wax style laces that you maybe find on like Travis Scott sneakers. They also removed the tongue tag, so instead of something that's actually stitched on here, that's all debossed as well, which I actually think is a really nice look. It just again makes this sneaker stand out from a regular pair of 4s. The plastic elements like the eye stays, the straps on the side, and of course the pull tab, that's all got this spackling detail to it, which makes it look very similar to that centerpiece of those metals, so literally like an iron. And this is where you can really assume that, yeah, they're probably using those metals as inspiration. Overall, I do like the look of it. However, I do think these could have looked a little bit better if they added some leather straps instead of the plastic, but yeah, it's a small detail. One of my favorite details on here is the inner sock liner. They added this really nice soft suede material, which really reminded me of what New Balance adds to their sneakers. Typically, it's like some crazy super soft material, which definitely adds to literally the feel of them on foot, but also in hand, just elevates it. And finally, we get to the mudguard on here, which, like I said, is a crackled or aged leather, but it feels and looks very similar to what they did on the Jordan 4 Taupe Haze. Something a lot of people did with the Taupe Haze 4s was basically take a Dremel tool and remove this effect, and underneath there's some kind of suede, which changes the look dramatically. I'm not entirely sure if you can do the same thing with these, but it kind of looks like you could. Nevertheless, this material does look and feel like it's going to wear a little bit better than if this was just solid suede or nubuck. Like if you get a couple drops of water or some scuffs on it, it's not going to be as bad as a nubuck. Moving to the midsole, they keep things super simple, just a much darker solid gray, and that's for every different panel, even the outsole. You're basically getting a bunch of different layers of gray on here. Although one thing I do want to point out is that a lot of the images of this pair of shoes online make it seem super contrasty from the dark gray midsole to the lighter gray upper. And potentially even as I'm looking at them on camera, it does seem like this is super light gray and this is super dark gray. However, when you actually have them in hand, it does look a lot more cohesive. It kind of almost seems monochromatic with just slightly different shades. And that's definitely something to note, and on foot, they don't look as super contrasty as they do online. Now, styling these things, I don't think they would make my top 10 list of summer sneakers. I just don't feel like they would fit in that category very well. So them dropping in July is a little bit odd. I found these looked the best styled with darker trousers or darker outfits, so like a black pair of jeans or cargos looked really good with these things. But I mean, it is a monochromatic gray sneaker, so I don't think you're gonna have any issues styling them. It's pretty straightforward. And in terms of sizing, these fit just like any other Jordan 4, so personally I always go true to size. These fit exactly that, and so that's what I'm going to recommend to you. I think the Jordan 4 is in a little bit of a weird place this year in 2024. Last year the hype was at an all-time high and pretty much every single colorway was selling out and everybody wanted every single pair. They were reselling for a ton of money. But it seems like the 4s have now caught whatever the Jordan 1s have. But if you think about it, it's kind of perfect timing because here in 2024 we're getting some of the most iconic colorways like the military blue 4s, the Bred 4s. And I do think that this is a very nice pair of 4s. I think it's a really nice different option when it comes to the different little details that it has. The colorway is really good, super versatile. And to be honest, I think there's going to be a decent amount of people that are going to be after these things. But I would love to know what you think. Are you going to be after the Paris Jordan 4, and what do you think of them down in the comments? And if you want to check out another video, YouTube's recommending that one right over there.